So first of all, congratulations on getting into the Italian Dark Night Film Festival, one of the best, one of the 15 best film festivals in the world. Congratulations, you're going next month. So salute on that. And then I'd like to ask you a few questions, and then we'll just open it to the audience. But first question is for Vlad. We as filmmakers always are working on many ideas. There's many possibilities. Where is the point where you say, okay, this is the film, this is where I'm going? And especially this is such a unique film, which is a composition of different films and filmmakers. So how does that come about? And then I'll ask a follow-up question. What is the conversation with the directors that are doing the films? And that's also for you. So it's kind of like two questions, but I'll start with you.
Well, sure, you can say it. That's a long question, and I could probably talk for the next 2 hours about that. But the short answer is that, so for this particular film, I had several projects. The idea started in 2022. I was really angry after the pandemic that, the whole mess that happened, and that it suddenly was just like, okay, now it's as if nothing has happened, and let's just go back to normal, as if there was a normal. And things just got, in my view, even there's so many things that they're still going on that I think are, really different than they were before. And the second thing was, I was thinking, oh my God, these guys, meaning all the politicians and institutions and so on, dealt with this thing so horribly. I mean, imagine how they're going to solve the climate crisis, right? But because these are political issues. But then I was thinking about how does this reflect in in our lives, and then I thought it would be really interesting to make a film to see how all these stories from different parts of the world and actually get some kind of collage of what these stories are like, what people are going through, and so on. And then I thought, well, who could do that, because we don't have a budget and we need to do this quickly. And then I thought, well, the New School has so many people from all around the world, and alums and filmmakers I know. So what if I talk to them and see if they are in the mood to actually just make this crazy project? And that's how we started. And we started, and it was very organic. It's completely unusual for a film. But I like to make films that we kind of jump in and then you figure out along the way, which is of course the best way to get a lot of money for, because it's like people go like, yeah, so what's your film about? And then you say, well, I know approximately, but not exactly, but will you give us money? So we had a very tight, low budget, but we had a little bit of a budget, with some producer we worked with before. And then it was just really the incredible enthusiasm and the fantastically talented people. So, the New School people, a lot of them. You want to add that?
No, I think the second question
I'll remind the follow-up question. So that conversation with the directors, and how much do you have influence on that? Because at the end of the day, as directors, we love control and we want the film to be the best film in our eyes. But at the same time, there's also a mentorship type of element and freedom to the directors as well. So that's a huge balance, and that's really mastering that is really an art. So that's a question for both of you from different sides.
So the idea was that each of the shorts can also be a standalone short, and they can do their own cut. And the idea was that the feature, because I've been doing this for a while, so that it will go somewhere and it will kind of carry with itself, all the filmmakers, but that they can also, do their own thing and do their own cuts. So, the cuts that are in the film, in some cases, are a little different than what the shorts will be in their standalone version. And, they had, each of the filmmakers had complete freedom to do whatever they wanted. And the only rule was that it should relate to the personal stories of the moment now. That are relevant for this specific place. So if it's Beirut, if it's Belgium, if it's Hong Kong, it was something that is relevant for this moment that we're in through some personal story. So that was how we started, and then you can tell them how it was.
How it was real. How it really was.
No, yeah, I don't know. I guess I got so excited about the project because the theme was so interesting. Tell something that's happening now in Beirut, and it's so hard to, tell a story, and every single day there's something happening, and I hope you're taking 5 minutes to just read the headlines about what's going on. I think it's important. So I was very interested to do so, but I was also very overwhelmed, and so there were a lot of things happening, but then I knew that I would be working with Vlad, and Vlad has been, will always be my mentor, and and I took a script writing class with him, so I was like, it would be kind of, he gets how chaotic my mind is, and he would help me just, take the risks and make the mistakes and just see where the story would go. So I was working from him from A to Z. It wasn't, I think, challenging for me as one of the filmmakers to be like, no, I want to do this, and I'm not going to listen to you because he's one of the few people I actually listen to, because he happens to always be right. But so it wasn't. It was, I think the most difficult thing for me was to direct it over Zoom and kind of like call and be like, we're going through this, we don't have electricity, how do we roll with it? And then, okay, let's probably, include that in this scene where the electricity just cuts off and then it's organic, and we don't have the money, there's a hyperinflation, how do we get all this? So it was a lot of things, and but every filmmaker was different, right? It was a different timing, and to me it was pleasant. I can't recall now at the top of my head if we had like a big challenge. It was just fun, and as you said, it was the excitement and the idea that we were all like telling stories from all over the world, which was incredibly amazing. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can also give my little 5 cents on it. I had a little short film there, the COVID, and I remember I could not. So during COVID, I realized this was an historical moment, and I went to shoot every day. But then every time I got back into editing that film, I could not do it because I think it still is a triggering thing for all of us. And I had the PTSD, I think we all have the PTSD on some level. And then Vlad saw the footage and he loved it, he said, you gotta do it. So 2 things that Vlad gave me is, just in that element is a deadline, is a very, very clear deadline. And then when I kind of began editing it, we talked and he said, I want these 4 emotions that will kind of like lead it. First, the shock. Second, the loneliness. Third, hope. And then the 4th one is kind of like a mixture of all of them with a green ending to that. So that was extremely helpful. That was how the thing was structured. So it was very general lines with lots of freedom, and to me that film worked. I could not have done it without you, so thank you for that. And yeah, it was a very great experience. Now we'll move to the other question, which is, I'll ask the production question later, but I'm very curious about, we asked the directing before, the editing process. Now you have the film already shot, and you get all the films from the directors and filmmakers. How is that process happening? Because that is probably going to be different than what you imagine, what you saw as, what we imagine and what the situation is when you see it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know if, I said it's always in class, it's that, editing is the most literate process of filmmaking. I mean, luckily we have a great editing professor here who sits right
Raphael!
But it really is, as you all know, you can create, things that are completely different in the editing room. And since this was so open-ended, so my fear was only, I knew we were going to get a film. I just didn't quite know what that film will be. And my only fear was that the mood of each of the films is going to be so different that when you put them together, although there is this, what you saw, that black and white, this story between these 2 characters, the New York stories kind of ties it all together. But I was, concerned that maybe it still won't quite work. But it did work, because although I think each of the films has its own, different filmmaker, and you can see this, but it's interesting that it all came together. It captured, a certain mood that was overall present of this kind of post-COVID moment. And I think, this is one of the questions you had, maybe later, which was, what was the discovery, or was there something that came out of it? And this was really interesting. This was a theme that we never discussed, but what came out almost in all of these films You know, and you can see, I mean, there's, you know, there's from various different regions in the world, and some of them very troubled, but it was all about leaving and staying. And that was really interesting. And you know, the aspect of people running away or trying to escape, and those who were left behind, in one way or the other. You know, some films were dealing, you know, Luz was not here, her film, she shot in Venezuela, and it was dealing with, you know, migrants and crossing the Darien Gap and so on. So that was very literal about that. You know, Shireen's film, which is, you know, not directly, well, it is about that, about the character who's kind of contemplating and, you know, kind of being in this space and, you know, thinking about different time and other people leaving and so on. So this was something that came out really organic, you know, and some other, you know, things that kind of repeated in different ways, subtly through these films, which I thought was just phenomenal. But, you know, it kind of, I think also, I don't know, I believe in these things where it's like, you know, that there are certain themes that kind of, you know, they keep popping up in different places. You know, this is why sometimes people make films without knowing each other and they have similar themes.
Now a question, going back, in question to the production, I also know you were the design or production designer, right? Or the head of like production design for the set, right?
Oh yeah, that I
Yeah,
get that.
the artist is you forgot, my God. That, I'd like to talk about the production itself and how, and also kind of like connected to your work. You were extremely successful as an independent filmmaker, but also in non-budget or very low-budget films and making them look great. And just as an example, I came to do a little bit of help, like 1 or 2 days, and I expected to see like, I don't know, 3 small cameras, and suddenly it was like 3 red cameras and, you know, lights, and then the set design is incredible. It looks like Martin Scorsese's Time Lessons, and I was like, wow, how did that happen? So maybe you could both talk about that process.
So, I mean, in terms of the low, no-budget filmmaking, you know, I think nobody chooses to make no-budget films. You all have a budget. But, you know, my first feature I did actually, which was in the 90s, and, you know, I had a bigger movie that fell through, and then, you know, this came about, and we did it on almost no budget. And I learned a lot doing that. But my rule is always that, you know, one is, you know, that whoever you work with, you always work together and you try to create something that's positive, that everybody has a good time. So, you know, so we don't do like 16, 18-hour days. We don't do, you know, not forcing people, you know, to do things, create a good atmosphere on the set, you know, and all these other things. So people who I worked with from like 30 years ago, they come back. So, you know, like what you saw, you know, for example, all this equipment, there's this one guy, his name is Matt Waxman, who is like a super professional. He has like 3 red cameras and works on big productions. I worked with people who have done Hunger Games and so on, and they work for me for next to nothing because, you know, they like the project, they like us working together, and we have a good time, you know. And there is a trick, and I learned this trick from another new school professor and a filmmaker. He actually worked on my first feature film, Joel Schlemowitz, who does experimental films. And this is, you know, if you have no budget, shoot non-consecutively. You know, because the problem is if you shoot for 2-3 weeks, let's say on a feature, right? I mean, it's very tough because how are people going to pay their rents? But if they can do projects that they have, you know, something that they can actually pay the rent and, you know, shoot over the weekend and come back the next day and so on, if they like it, you know, if they can afford it, if they want to, you know, so if we all agree, okay, this is the deal, can you do it? Are you excited by the project? And we just work on that. So it's crazy. I mean, we had this, you know, I had this on many films, you know, on where when people see it, they say like, oh, this is a $10 million budget, and the budget is, you know, almost next to nothing. So it's really, you know, and then it's really just working with people who are great in what they do. So like,
What exactly about that?
Anything you want to say about the production design?
It's
And
fine. Now that I remember, yeah, I forgot how I mean, what we ate Lebanese food.
that's fantastic.
Everyone was so happy on set. There was just joy, you know. We're all like.
she brought happiness to the set because she had some way of getting catering from Lebanese restaurants for free. So, you know, you work on no budget, you usually get like pizzas, you know, and we had this amazing food every day, you know, and that was really just Shireen somehow made that happen.
I mean, I think, I just, you know, you ask around, you're like, here's the film, you just draft that email. And now there's like ChatGPT, which is great, so it's even easier now. You know, it takes you like 2 seconds to just drop these emails left and right, and you would be surprised by, you know, a sexy synopsis, here's the crew, and, I mean, yeah, we're not talking about the news, right? We're talking about, yeah, the set was amazing. I think Vlad had an idea about having it minimal, and then, you know, we started asking around everyone, could we bring a light from here? Could we bring, he hated flowers. I always have flowers and everything, so he removed them, but like, it's just, I think, but I have to give credit actually to Palak. So we also worked with an amazing new school student who was an undergrad, and we met her through Orpheus's class. And she's the one who was very excited about also production design, so I would give the credit to her, and I was more like helping with her. But yeah, we didn't have any problems on set, which is not quite common.
Not quite, well, maybe I always like to ask this, like crisis mode on set, if there was, like there's always like something that, you know, doesn't go as planned, and then how do you deal with it in that sense? Any stories behind the scenes of that?
Yeah, I had in the Beirut, but not in this one. Like the actor when he had COVID.
No, I mean, yeah, we had, I mean, there was the sound guy who you know, came and then couldn't come later and so on. You just, you know, you just run with the, you know, just find solutions. You have to think on your feet, you know. So and just find solutions as you go along. But yeah, there wasn't really anything major. I think it was like we had this one sound person who came on was a professional guy, and he did it one day and then he couldn't come, and then others you helped out and Ken helped out. And
I do remember one moment that it was like, I think the last day, the location fell through and we had to move to a different place and find it. And I remember how everybody was very calm and relaxed, and I was like, wait, is there like a real crisis, or did they plan it just to make it interesting? I was really impressed, because I would probably be freaking out right now and like screaming, but the entire production team, Vlad, Shireen, Rachel was so cool and relaxed and just found that solution elegantly and easily.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, it was a great team, you know, and it's kind of, again, a lot of these things happened organically. I mean, you saw that drone shot that we did on the World Fair. So, you know, this team, you know, that actually Matt brought along, which was the gaffer and the grips and so on, were fantastic. And so, you know, I said, well, we need that drone shot, and, you know, it's tricky because it's close to LaGuardia, so we actually need a permit to fly a drone there. And then it turned out that the gaffer is a licensed drone pilot, you know, and things like that, you know, and so, you know, we had luck.
All right, before we open it up, and I have much more questions, but we are on the constraints of time, when is it going to show next? So where can we hear about it and learn more about it?
I'll announce it after the festival, so more news late November.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are opening the floor to questions. Please feel free to ask.
Vlad, just a quick one. What's the total running time of the film?
It's 95 minutes.
You can ask, it's awkward, ask anything. Anything.
The black and white that it opens with is really beautiful, and I didn't know, because it's all like short films put together, I don't know who to credit for that cinematography, but and that choice to do it in black and white, and I don't know the story, but I just thought it was really beautifully shot, and since the trailer opened with it, I didn't know if that was like, why the choice of black and white, and who shot that. It looked beautiful.
Yeah, so this is the New York story is black and white except for one scene, and all the world stories are color. And so that was deliberate. Yeah, that was a DP. Actually, who teaches cinematography here, or Fest. So if you want to take classes with DP, he's She's teaching here. And you know, again, the way I think is always like in terms of, you know, another, like the way, just what I think is that your budget is your aesthetic. So, you know, black and white looks great. It also removes, you know, the view from reality, but it's also much more forgiving than color when you're shooting on a budget. So, you know, so all these things come in play when we thought about it. But, you know, again, I think in the end, everything has to kind of, you know, in my view, it's like you have to answer your own question, why, right? So it's like, yeah, I want to shoot black and white because it's easier. Yeah, but how does it fit with, you know, and why would the world stories be color and so on? So,
Hi, I thought the trailer looked awesome, and I just wanted to ask if there was a worry to find between all the stories, between different places, a common aesthetic, a common language, or if you think the film benefited from, or benefits from them being so different, but the thematics being the same.
well, I think, I don't know, but, you know, we'll see that that's going to be, you know, once it's screened. So far, you know, people have seen it, I think it benefits. I mean, it's a different film, definitely. I think, you know, some people get a little bit surprised because, you know, it's different than most of the stuff that you see nowadays. But I think it benefits from, you know, I mean, there's a certain richness to it, you know, that really, and it's, you know, it's really crazy, I think, in the sense, you know, we had this, sorry that Julie's not here because she's from Belgium and she was in Paris, and so there's this one scene with this French actor who's actually really well known in France, and I worked with him before, and he was in France and then coming to New York. So when Julie was in Paris, she shot the first part of a short there, and then we have a cut and he comes out of the subway and we have the second part in New York. So this looks like we had some like woohoo, you know, $1 million you know, budget, and plus he's a, you know, well-known actor, so people think, oh, you know, we must have paid him something. But he's the sweetest guy ever, and I worked with him on 4 films. So, you know, he of course wanted to be in it. So there's these things that seem like, you know, you don't even think of like it's, you know, what's the budget or whatever and so on. So I think it's really that, the richness of it, and I think the stories in themselves, who is interested in that, you know. I think, you know, there might be people who might prefer a film that has a linear storyline, you know, with a dramatic storyline, who might feel that this might be too much, but I think it really benefits from the various stories.
I have a question. Sorry. I wonder a lot about the script, because you mentioned there are multiple stories involved. Was it like a Frankenstein project of putting together different pages of script, or did you have like a formal storyline plot kind of planned out? I really want to know about that.
Good question, thank you. No, there were scripts for each one, and we actually, when we talked initially about the shorts, you know, there were, each one was with the script, so I knew what the script was. You know, so we went back and forth already on the scripts. So it wasn't, you know, and New York was the script, and each of the different stories had a script. But still, you know, I mean, you have a script, but what the film would look like, that's, you know, we didn't know. But again, you know, there's so much. I mean, I keep talking about our part of the New York film, but you know, Shireen's film is like, you know, crazy. I mean, she was sitting in New York directing. She had like a crew of 40 people.
I was sitting in Astoria in my tiny room.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. You know, so it's like, you know, with blackouts and, you know, and again with, you know, some of the very well-known Lebanese actors, you know, so it's like, you know, it's really, I think if we had a budget, actually probably wouldn't be able to do that, you know, what we did here. So.
Yeah, because it pushes you, I think. I think it pushes you, especially like now, I'm seeing a lot of students, and that's amazing. I mean, this is now the time, because I just started work and I wish I still see Vlad and Ruff on Omega every single day and be like, okay, I'm just gonna play around, you know, because it's just, you don't have that luxury. And then I think now more than ever, because you know, you've got all your professors, you've got all the material, like, you know, some cameras to just take it and do that. So yeah, why did I just now get a class? Okay. Oh, but that was a good question. Yeah, about the script.
For sure, my apologize.
I have a question about the process of getting all the footage together. Did you edit as you went, or was there like an amount of time you gave for all the films to come together?
Yeah, there was an amount of time, and this is actually some of the films, you know, filmmakers who wanted to do, but you know, they were not able to do it and so on. But there were deadlines which were extended multiple times. But yeah, there were deadlines, and you know, I would see like rough cuts and we would talk through. So it wasn't like just they would drop a finished film. So you know, as it was like throughout the process, I was like we were talking, and you know, I was seeing what they were editing. You know, I was editing, so it was really a collaboration, which is, you know, again a great thing that they could be like, I mean, you know, Shirin was in New York, but some people were in other parts of the world. And then the interesting thing was, you know, at the end, also because I thought that we were missing some parts of the world, and then, you know, we just I found filmmakers online and just contacted them whose stuff I thought looked really interesting. I said, hey, we're doing this thing, are you interested in being part of it? And this was crazy, you know, you got this one, you know, filmmaker who was in Ukraine, basically, and was, you know, shooting during the war, and he was, you know, he immediately sent us footage and so on. So, you know, I mean, it's like sometimes I think people get, you know, you feel like you can't do these, you know, but it's all out there, right? I mean, there's so many people making films and shooting and so on. So, you know, it's actually, I think, easier than ever to establish these collaborations, you know, and a lot of people who you think, you know, some people will go immediately, oh, what's the budget, what money, and so on. And you're like, well, this is the situation, if you know. And there's always like, okay, yeah, if we make big money, we'll all share it. But, you know, be aware that we live in a time where it's very unlikely that small independent films will make a lot of money. So, you know, there are many other reasons why, you know, people want to be just part of a project like this. Yeah.
You kind of mentioned it in your last answer, but some of these shorts take place in very troubled parts of the world where it might be even dangerous to run around shooting a movie. Was there a lot of resistance or reservations, or were people more open to show what's going on?
No, actually, I mean, there were in some parts, I mean, in some of the shorts there were concerns, so that, you know, not to list certain people or certain things or how, you know, so, and, you know, of course, so we did that. But in actuality, a lot of them wanted to, you know, like that filmmaker from Ukraine, and some of the footage you saw here was from Syria, actually. It was a Syrian filmmaker that was after the earthquake, and he really wanted, you know, the footage. So those actually, a lot of them who are from these regions actually wanted, you know, for the world to see their footage. I mean, they have it in other places, and, you know, I mean, we're not, you know, taking anything as you know, exclusive rights for this film, you know. So of course not. So they can use this footage, they can do whatever they want with it, you know, and do their own edits and post it and whatnot. So the idea is that hopefully, you know, as the film goes out, that it will actually benefit everybody, you know, participating in the film.
Julian?
Last question.
Yeah, this is the last question.
I can speak. So, with you kind of making a big conglomeration project with all of these filmmakers around the world, you're kind of like the puppeteer mastermind behind the scenes in a sort of way. So, how are you directing the directors who are doing the stories on all of the other parts of the world? Like, are you on Zoom with them, like as they're about to like film certain scenes at certain times? How are you communicating with that and getting the feedback that you want from them, like maybe live or post-production or pre-production, to have it all go together?
Well, it was basically the way it worked is that, you know, we talked in stages. So it's like, okay, this is, you know, so for example, like, what's your idea? This is the idea of the film I want to do. So then we discussed that. Then, you know, this is the script. Then we discuss this. But then, you know, I don't want, you know, I'm not like, oh yeah, cut here, do this, you know, it's their films, right? So they go out and shoot what they think, you know, and we said this, and I said this from the beginning, okay, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And, you know, so this was clear. If it was really, really different, then, you know, they will still have a short that they can use. But all of the films, I think, fit in the end. So it was through this, you know, so then they shoot, you know, they have a rough cut, put it together again, I see the rough cut, we talk. And so it was kind of, you know, it was more like me being the producer, you know, do their films rather than me directing their films. So they, that's my version.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was more of a conversation, and I think the hardest thing now that I think of it when you were actually editing the whole film, because he is the director and the writer and the editor of it, and so like to have all this footage from all over, and to see, okay, which story are we going to put first? Is it Belgium? Is it Ukraine? Is it Syria? When does it hit? When does it not? When am I tired? When am I excited? Would it be out of a discount? And you're listening to different accents, and you're seeing different places and different textures and so on. So I think to me that was the most challenging now that I think of it, because as much as we were always going to him for questions and guidance and so on, but also during the edit there was this conversation. So how are you feeling? And you can't say, oh, I like it, I don't like it. He was actually looking for feedback. And Julie and I and everyone else that was involved, I mean, we were all open. We're like, okay, we're just gonna take whatever you're noticing, and we'll think about it and so on. But I think the hardest thing is how he was capable of putting all of this together in 90-something minutes, where the point is to connect with every home, right? And so that was, to me, that was tough. But now that I'm looking at the trailer, it's so fascinating to see how did all this come through. And I wanted to comment, I think you asked before that these are places that are troubled. I think this is the time when you feel like you have this need to tell these stories. I remember when I was in touch with this also Ukrainian filmmaker, he was thanking us, like thank you, because sometimes the media shows you something, but then you as a filmmaker, you kind of want to, show it from your eyes. And I'm glad that he chose to tell those stories that matter. And yeah.
Thank you so much, all of you, for